Hello, I know I said I wouldn't do any more videos about the editing, but it turned out to be one of the most difficult, challenging edits I've had to do on a college project to date. So I thought I'd just quickly run you through some of the things I did for this edit, some of the decisions I made, because there is actually quite a bit to talk about. So the main two things that I was having problems with in this edit were the story and the audio. I think I'll go over the audio first because it can be explained a bit quicker. But basically, I know in the last video I mentioned how we had problems lining up the audio. Well, what I didn't mention is we actually had problems hearing the audio. What I mean by that is, well, I guess I'll just show you. The audio was extremely, extremely quiet. If we take this shot, for example, this shot at the end where the dialogue is quite important here. By quite, I mean it's vital. This is the final scene. And if I take down the audio from what we had it to 0 decibels, you can see it's here. It's peaking at minus 36 dB. This is bad. Basically, this is very bad. A normal film, or what you should be aiming for, is around -6 to -12. So minus 36 is a little bit quiet. So I tried at first loads of different methods that I knew of making it louder, but with audio it's not really that simple. If you make your track louder, it doesn't just make the nice dialogue louder, it makes everything louder. So there was loads of static in the background. You could hear the nearby road like it was inside your brain, and it was just horrible. And I had actually originally conceded to the fact it was quiet. I tried to edit it and I was just like, you know what, it's just going to be quiet. It's better than having the sounds of the apocalypse behind the dialogue. Then I brought it into college, the edit, and Simon, who has far more experience than me, rightly said the audio has to be hearable. This film will not work if you cannot hear the dialogue. So again, Simon tried loads of stuff, I tried loads of things, and eventually we just came to the conclusion that messy audio is better than inaudible audio, which seems obvious retrospectively, but at the time I was really not happy about having messy audio. But anyway, so we threw out pretty much every clip to 15, the max you could put it, 15 decibels. Oh no, this is a bad example. Anyway, yeah, here we go. There we go. I don't know. Don't ask about the last one. But then it sounded absolutely horrible. So just as a bit of a why not, I threw on a thing called a denoiser effect, and I found that it sounded all right.
Fly through the brick through Sean Jackson's car.
He had nothing to do with that, Alex.
So it sounds a tiny bit underwater, but considering we went from minus 36 peaks to where we're peaking now, I think it's the loudest part, around minus 18. Like that is doable. Like that's still a tiny bit quiet, but that's audible. That works. And I realized that if I just did a tiny bit of editing on my denoiser for each different shot, it could actually work. The unfortunate thing was the denoiser had different effects, different results, should I say, for every single different shot. So I basically had to go through every single piece of audio I had, turn it up where necessary. As you saw from the phone call conversation, some of the clips with my mum didn't actually need to be turned up because I shot that with my own microphone. But pretty much most of the stuff we shot with the C100, we had to throw up to 15 decibels, as you can see here. And that meant I had to put a denoiser on, and I had to manually custom the denoiser for every single piece of audio. So that was an absolute nightmare, but I did it, and that's great. That was a fun day. But yeah, so that was the first problem with the audio. The second problem, not really a problem, just something that could be improved, was this middle conversation here on the phone call without, if I mute all the background tracks. Again, a lot of this is just Simon being like, Taryn, you can make this better. And here's a great example. So this little conversation.
Oh, hi Angela. How's it going?
I don't know.
So you can hear just with the dialogue, there's nothing going on. The soundscape is just very boring. It's literally just...
I don't know, love. I'm worried about Jack. He's gone and done something.
Because I shot this with a what's it called? A lav. My beautiful little Rode lav. It didn't pick up any background noise, which, one hand, fantastic. In terms of creating a nice, realistic soundscape, nightmare. Couldn't hear a thing. So this wasn't really that difficult. This was pretty standard editing. I got the sounds of a like Radio 1 talk show kind of thing, not music, like them chatting about some challenges. Threw that behind the clips of Jack's mum here, and put some like little cool effects in it, like a high pass, a panner, some studio reverb in there to make it sound like it was in the background, and as if she was listening to the radio. That's kind of what I was going for. And then for all of Alex's stuff, I put on just some small crowd talking, and then threw on just the studio reverb and a panner. And I didn't actually use the panner for that at all. Oh yeah, also the reason I used the panner for this was to make it sound like it was a little bit in your right ear, because in my head, Jack's mum is the kind of person who'd have the radio to the right. Don't ask, just in my head, I had to put a panner on it. Anyway, so now it sounds like...
Hi, Alex.
Oh, hi, Angela.
So you can hear that
How's it going?
slight...
I don't know. Look,
This one sounds
I'm
quite
worried about
robotic,
Jack.
but you can hear... Yeah, you can hear something in the background, which gives it a bit more excitement. Then finally, the final major thing I did with the audio was the song at the end. So basically, the ending wasn't really doing it for me. By that, I mean it wasn't touching me emotionally at all. This is mainly because it didn't really make sense. But I knew from my experience of editing, if I could kind of somehow cheat some sort of emotion at the end, then we could maybe salvage the film a tiny bit, because I figured if we left the audience at the very end feeling some sort of emotion, any emotion, then that's good. If their last thought is positive, then it's a success. And I knew that I wasn't taking any emotion out of the film, so I had to think of another way to bring emotion. I decided music was the best way. It's very cheeky, it's very naughty, and I would not recommend this to any editors to rely on music, but this is an example where I had to. So I found this song called Devil Like Me by Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and I threw it underneath.
To do it.
As you can hear, that it gives the whole scene just a little bit more emotion, a nice little acoustic. It kind of feels a bit somber, matches what the writer had intended the feeling to be at the end of the film. And also, as you can see, the little guitar bit, I don't know what you call it, I don't know anything about music theory, but the guitar intro, I repeated it. So here, so in the actual song, it only plays it once and the vocals come in, but I knew that I liked that little guitar thing and it worked well, so I just repeated it. And I used...
To do it.
Yeah, so I'm quite happy with how that came out. I also got Tom to help me, because Tom on my course is a drummer. So I got him to kind of sit and like tap the beat next to me, and we worked out, and that came out really well. And then also a little thing I like to do is cutting on the beats at the very end. So it just cuts on the beat every time, which is just a little bit of satisfaction. But it makes the end feel a whole lot cleaner, drag out some emotion. Very naughty, but I got a little message from one of my mates the night after we watched the film saying, your ending was actually quite emotional considering it made no sense, which, music to my ears, funnily enough. No pun intended. Music to my ears. That's basically the audio. The second part, which was a problem, was the story. I'm not going to point any fingers, but through all of our fault, the story made no sense, basically. That's not good. So the biggest problems with the story is I and myself, as the DP and the editor, didn't really know whose story it was. And so when I filmed it, I kind of filmed everyone with equal weight. I gave everybody the same amount of shots. I gave everyone the same amount of time on screen when I was shooting it. So when I came to the edit, I kind of had to make a decision of whose story this was. In the end, I decided it was Alex's story because, well, mainly because it was this phone call in the middle involves Alex. So that means Alex is in every scene of the film, whereas Jack isn't. So I mainly made it about Alex. And so... where am I going with this? Yeah, so I then, to go into the edit, I had to make sure to capture Alex's reaction to pretty much everything. The first scene doesn't really count. This is just people running. See their nice little feet.
Just go! Run!
Yeah, so in the opening scene, there's no real indication of who the main characters are. You can tell it's between Jack and Alex, and that's important because I tried to capture their dynamic, taking out any shots of Chris, because Chris as a character doesn't really play any part in the central plot at all. So I kind of took her out of the opening scene just to establish who this is between. Also, but to mention, this opening scene is almost completely inspired by Paul Greengrass, I think that's his name. I don't know what his first name is. Mr. Greengrass's work on the Bourne series, all being handheld, kind of crazy cuts, especially towards the beginning. So yeah, so that was just there to establish their relationship. Then this scene here, I had a lot of power in the edit because I had mid shots and close-ups of pretty much every character. So I had to decide whose story I was telling. So I thought I'd open on the shot of Chris. My decision for that was really mainly because here's the first line, but then I instantly cut to this reaction shot of the two of them, giving Alex the power in the frame. And then even here we have her reactions, nice and close up. And this is again, because I'm cutting directly between Chris and Alex, it kind of shows that what's important to the story is their relationship. Jack and Alex, sorry, I keep getting the names mixed up. And then really as the scene goes on, it's just continuing cutting between Jack and Alex, a little bit of Chris in the background. But again, I never really give Chris her own space, and this is because she's not really important. That's nothing against the actress. The actress was very talented. It's just the script didn't need her, unfortunately. So just keeping it between Jack and Alex all the way through. That's all that really can be said for this. Jack leaves, all on Alex, focus, then cut straight to Alex because it's whoops, because it's her whoops, it's her reaction that we want to capture. Up nice and tight, even here. Although Chris is bigger in the frame, we're actually looking at Alex, and Alex has the power in this frame as well, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, then in this conversation, nothing happened. Oh yeah, actually, another thing I'll mention is in the first draft of the script, this conversation between Chris and Alex, got it right that time, goes on for way longer. But essentially, all they're saying is Chris basically spends about a whole page explaining to Alex how she doesn't have to worry about the police. One page is a little bit too long, so I basically just cut that down.
To be fair, and I think Jack's going to fuck with me.
Oh, don't listen to Jack, he's stupid.
So I definitely felt, watching it retrospectively, that this scene was clearly rushed. It was clear I tampered with it, but compared to spending a minute watching somebody say the same thing over again, it's a necessary evil. I'm going to close down these nested sequences because it's just causing problems. Anyway, this scene, not a lot really changes. I kind of meddled with some of the lines a bit to make it a bit cleaner, but for the most part, nothing massively important. And for this scene, I changed quite a lot. This last scene, I basically put all my eggs in one basket of this last scene and tried to make this as good as possible. For example, putting in the music, using all the cool stuff I already told you about with the visual barriers between the two. This show especially, like, that's just Bong Joon-ho all over. Anyway, this opening scene was them just nattering, basically cut out all of that because not important. And then once we actually get to the two of them, I pretty much cut about 40-50% of this conversation, because a lot of this conversation was the characters just saying how they feel. And I mean, I know you've heard this a million times, but show don't tell, boys. Ladies and gentlemen, show don't tell. So instead, I cut out a lot of the lines. For example, in the beginning, it's Jack. Jack goes, "How you doing?" And Alex goes, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?" And it's kind of like not really how you'd speak in real life. So how I cut it instead looks a little bit like this.
How have you been?
I'm sorry you had to pay that fine.
And so you'll be looking at that and being like, hang on a minute, why did she not answer him? It's because they've got a very awkward conversation. Think about it for a second. Let's envisage this for a moment. You've got somebody who's, according to the script, has literally robbed you, and then you've framed them smashing someone else's car. It's all a bit confusing. Anyway, you're not very happy with each other. You meet begrudgingly. Obviously, Alex doesn't really want to be here. She was told to check on Jack by Jack's mum. In the earlier scene, so she walks up. She's not happy to be there. Jack is incredibly awkward. Imagine you're these two people. Someone says, "How are you doing?" You probably wouldn't engage in friendly conversation. So just straight into the meat of it. Efficiency. Straight into the, "I'm sorry." It also shows that this has been on her mind for a while. You know, if you're nervous to have a conversation, let's say you've done something wrong, you really just want to get in there as soon as possible, get it out the way. Rip off the Band-Aid.
I'm sorry you had to pay that.
Straight into the meat of it. Way more efficient. Whoa. And then...
Nah, it's alright. I felt like I should have paid it anyway.
Then we get straight, within like 2 lines, we're straight into the core part of this scene, which is Jack's apology. This is the important part. Jack apologising, them fixing their relationship. This is what we want to get to. So I've basically cut out all but 2 lines that happened before it, just because we're trying to get here as fast as possible. So this is what's really important. So then we get this. I hold in order to kind of show the weight of this apology, how important it is, I just hold this shot. This is the second longest, give or take, one of the longest shots in the whole scene, because it's just, give it to the performance. Don't do anything crazy with the camera. Let the audience just watch and focus on Greg's fantastic performance.
But I needed some kind of like smack in the face. And I should say sorry too, and thank you for...
What a little sweetie Greg is. And then we cut straight to a 2, because this shows that through Jack's apology, he has brought them closer together, as we can see through the dynamics of the scene. Aren't they close compared to not very close? And then they have their little...
Through Sean Jackson's car.
He had nothing to do with that, Alex.
all of this dialogue as well.
Me and my brother...
Actually, looking at this retrospectively, I could have got rid of this stuff as well, but the scene, the pacing of the scene probably would have been quite quick had I got rid of this.
Money. And I can shift the blame onto him all I want, but
Oh, there's our music.
I chose to do it.
And then here there was some more dialogue going on, but I decided that silence. What says more than silence? Not a lot, in my opinion, especially when it comes to film. We've given them the meeting, we've given them the apology, we've given them the slight awkward make it up, and then just give the audience, give the characters time to breathe, time to process, time to reflect. Nothing says that better than just silence. So, what did I do? I got every single shot I had where they didn't talk and put them back to back. There is no silence in the original script. I just had to steal chunks going, they don't speak here, let's use this. Actually, most of the shots is actually reaction shots. So, because I filmed it by setting up a shot and then just running the entire scene, there's lots of bits where the actor / actress I'm focusing on isn't speaking, they're actually reacting to somebody else speaking. So in this shot, when we originally shot it, this is her reacting to Jack's apology. Because Ellie is quite a good actress, you can see on her face that she looks quite sad, quite, I don't know, I can't think of the word, but a bit awkward. Perfect, that's how she was reacting to that. Let's make that into silence. This is Jack reacting to, I don't know what line he's reacting to, but you can tell whatever Ellie's saying is making him feel a bit guilty. So if you put them back to back, you can see on their faces, they're feeling a bit guilty, a bit awkward. Put on a nice little soundtrack. I mean, that's just beautiful. That is beautiful storytelling, if I may say so myself. And then there was a shot of Chris being like, oh, can we go? I'm really cold. But no, Chris, I'm sorry. Chris, you're lovely, but you're not important to the story. You're not important. So cut her, get her out of there. And so it's just Alex decides, you know what? We've said what we needed to say. There's probably no salvaging this friendship. I came here for what I needed to do, and now I say goodbye. And then what does she do? She says goodbye.
I should leave. Bye, Jack.
Oh my god.
Bye, Alex.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. For a scene that makes no sense, this is actually quite good. I'm happy with this. So yeah, that was the edit. All in all, the main reason it was such a nightmare was that bloody audio. But yeah, it was a good experience. It was a great lesson in visual storytelling. Because I shot so many shots all the way through, there was a lot of ways I could take this, basically in the edit. A lot of ways I could take this. And I'm happy with how it came out. The first scene The last scene, however, I'm really, 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 really happy with the last scene. I'd say this is probably some of my best work in terms of editing. So yeah, so that was brilliant. And it also learnt me to be really, really brutal in the edit, because in my first draft I just stayed completely loyal to the script, and it just wasn't there. It just wasn't working. So Simon basically gave me permission. Not gave me permission. He basically suggested I should be brutal. Again, showing his experience, and so I was, and what do you know, turned out for the better. The last thing to mention is I did a tiny little colour grade, nothing crazy. If I just do this, you'll see, oh yeah, we can do it. I mean, I was going to, let's do it this way instead. You can see, this is the original, this is the grade. Not a lot, just bringing up a bit of contrast. It was mainly just contrast. Actually, yeah, just contrast it a bit, just make it a bit nicer, bring out the blacks a bit more, just make it look a little bit more clean. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, thank you for watching. This editing experience has been a great, so many lessons learned. It was painful. That day I spent about 5-6 hours straight just on the computer editing. It was intense, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. So yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.